All right, worksheet 2. All right, the whole reason that we learned to factor was actually because this is how you solve quadratic equations by hand. So I'm going to put this first one on the calculator, just so we can see in the calculator that we can see what the answer is. That's okay, you can do these by calculator. I would also like you to be able to do them by hand, but just like we've been working on the equations, as long as you can do them on the calculator, you'll be okay. But if you want to be really good at this, you've got to be able to do it by hand as well. So let's see what this does. So we've got our graph, and we can see that our solutions are at x equals 1 and x equals 2, 3, 4, 5. So x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 5. All right, so what can we do with that? So let's take a look. If we do our equation here, and we say 0, remember I said we're going to usually do this by finding our zeros. 0 is equal to x squared minus 6x plus 5. Now, we learned to factor in the box, so let's go ahead and factor in our box here real quick. So the x squared goes here. I'm going to move kind of fast because I'm assuming that you know how to do this. So we're looking for factors of 5 that when I add them equal this negative 6 equals 6. The only factors of 5 are 1 and 5, so we have 1x and 5x. So 1 plus 5 is positive 6, so both of these need to be negative. And so we have our x minus 1 and x minus 5. All right, so we have our factored form. So we have 0 equals x minus 1 and x minus 5. All right, so what did I say our answers are? Our answers are 1 and 5. Can you take a look here and see what relationship those have to those answers? If you look at each of those terms in the factored form, the answers are 1 and 5. So if we take a look, we go, what makes this section equal to 0? So if I put a 1 in here, I get 1 minus 1 times 1 minus 5, and that's 0 times negative 4, which is 0. Okay, so that gives us one of our answers. Let me erase that over there so I have more room. Or I can say, what makes this area over here equal 0? Well, that would be 5. So I have 5 minus 1 times 5 minus 5. So 5 minus 5 is 0. This is 4, so 4 times 0 is 0. So in both cases, when x is equal to 1 and when x is equal to 5, then our whole solution is equal to 0. So we call these the zeros or the solution. So x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 5. Like I said, you can find this by doing it on the calculator with the graph, or in here by finding when they are equal to 0 at 1 and at 5. But this is how you actually do it by hand. All right, so we're going to practice doing it by hand a little bit more. I'm going to want to see a few of them by hand, and then after that, if you want to do them in the calculator, that's quite all right. You can do it that way. All right, so let's do the next one. So we have x squared plus 7x plus 6. So we're going to do our box. X squared, 6. So factors of 6 that add up to 7. That's 6 and 1. So that's positive. So 6 plus 1 is 7. So that's good. So we have our x plus 1 and x plus 6. And so our factored form is 0 equals x plus 1 and x plus 6. So basically what we're looking for is what makes this 0 and what makes this 0. Now it's pretty obvious in these simple cases. So that would be negative 1. and that would be negative 6. But if it weren't so obvious, what we could do is we could do each one of these. We go 0 equals x plus 1 plus 1. And we do 0 equals x plus 6, and just solve both of those equations. All right, and we'd end up with x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 6. And if we were to put that into the calculator, plus 7x plus 6 equals 0. And we go on to our graph. We can see they're at negative 1 and negative 6. If we go into our table, we're looking for where y equals 0, or where these two are the same. So at negative 1 and at negative 6. All right, I'm going to do 2 more by hand on this video, and then we'll see if I do another video. We're going to skip down to this one here, because this one's a little bit different. So this one isn't y equals, although we assume that it's going to be. If we're going to do this on a calculator, we could just plug this one in, and we could say x squared plus 2x equals 24. And we could go into the table and find out where x is equal to, where y1 and y2 are the same. So it'd be at x equals negative 6 and x equals 4. So let's work this out by hand and see if we get the same thing. So here I've got to get this equal to 0 to do this by hand, okay? So I'm going to do minus 24 and minus 24. All right, so basically I move this over to the other side, and if it's positive, I make it negative. If it's negative, I make it positive, because I'm doing the opposite, right? Okay, so now I have 0. So now I'm just going to factor this using our box. So x squared minus 24. So factors of negative 24 that when I subtract them equal 2. We can do that in the calculator, but for right now I'm just going to tell you what they are. They're 6 and 4. So we have 6x and 4x. They've got to equal positive 2. So one of these is going to be negative, so the bigger one is positive. Okay, so we have our x plus 6 and our x minus 4. So we have 0 equals x plus 6 and x minus 4. So what makes this 0? X equals negative 6, because negative 6 plus 6 is 0. What makes this 0? Positive 4. So x equals positive 4. If we go back on our calculator again, we saw that those two were equal when x is 4 and when x is negative 6. All right, so one more here. So again, this one, we need to move this over to the other side by changing its sign. Now this is equal to 0 because I added 35 to both sides, right? So and then I'm going to factor this. I need to move that up a little bit. So we're going to factor this using a box. So we have our x squared plus 35. So we're looking for factors of 35 that when I add them equals negative 12. Again, if we want to, we can clear all this out. And we can go 35 divided by x. If you remember, that gives us our factors. So which ones, when I add them, equal 12? So 5 and 7. It's going to be 5x and 7x. So 5 plus 7 is negative 12. So we have our x minus 5 x minus 7. So we have 0 equals x minus 5 and x minus 7. Alright? So, what makes this part 0? 5. So, one of our answers is x equals 5. What makes this part 0? X equals 7. Okay, and if we go back and put this in our calculator, let's see, we have x squared minus 12x equals negative 35, and we go into our table. So one of them is, where they're both the same, is that x equals 5. And we know from the work we did it's going to be 7, and there it is right there. X is equal to 7. So they're going to have two solutions. Okay? So if you would like to try to do more of these by hand, if you're good at the factoring, it's very good to figure that out. If not, you're more than welcome to do them in the calculator. But I do want you to go ahead and work the rest of these. All right. Thank you.